Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for new stories. An alien diplomat, Keltria, representing the enigmatic and advanced Seraphani race, lands on Earth seeking alliance and cultural exchange. Her dazzling appearance, an amalgamation of luminescent skin, flowing crystalline hair, and liquid silver eyes, captivates humanity. However, during a ceremonial exchange, Keltria accidentally ingests a mysterious artifact of unity, a device designed to physically and psychically connect two civilizations. She immediately begins to suffer strange effects, including uncontrollable surges of energy. A human diplomat, Marcus Haldane, known for his resourcefulness and empathy, steps in to assist. Despite the cultural misunderstandings, Marcus promises Keltria that humanity will help her. He calls for the best human and alien scientists to work together, setting the stage for an urgent race against time. Continue, Part 1, 1000 words. The Seraphani diplomatic ship hovered in the sky like a celestial jewel. It cast refracted rainbows over the gathered crowd, whose collective gasps filled the air. Reporters jostled for position, camera drones buzzing. The summit between Earth and the Seraphani had been hyped as a turning point for humanity, a chance to learn from beings 1,000 years more advanced. Keltria descended from the ship, her ethereal form shimmering as though lit from within. Her voice, layered in harmonics, spoke flawless English. "We come in the spirit of peace to share knowledge and forge a bond." Marcus Haldane, representing Earth, stepped forward. Dressed in an understated suit, his sharp features softened by a warm smile, he extended a hand. "On behalf of humanity, we welcome you. It's an honor." The Seraphani had no concept of handshakes, but Keltria nodded, an approximation of human body language she had studied. Her eyes gleamed. "Your customs intrigue us." A ceremonial table had been set with artifacts from both civilizations, a Seraphani crystalline orb and an Earth-made globe engraved with constellations. The exchange was meant to symbolize unity. Yet as Keltria grasped the Earth globe, something went awry. The artifact thrummed in her hands, its subtle hum escalating into a deafening crescendo. The gathered crowd fell silent as Keltria's form shimmered violently. Her face contorted, not in fear but confusion. A beam of light shot out, striking her chest. Keltria collapsed. "Get medics!" Marcus shouted, running to her. The Seraphani guards tensed but held their positions, trusting their diplomat's judgment. Marcus knelt, his voice calm despite the turmoil. "Keltria, can you hear me?" Her luminous eyes fluttered open. "Something entered me. A construct, meant to bind. It is too much." Marcus turned to the assembled scientists. "What the hell just happened?" A human researcher ventured forward hesitantly. "The artifact must have reacted, maybe misinterpreted her physiology. It's designed for connection, but this could be dangerous." As Keltria sat up, her aura flickered erratically. "I feel it expanding. It is not just a construct. It contains knowledge, too vast for one mind." Her voice held an edge of panic, and Marcus knew this was far more than a diplomatic hiccup. Part 1 climaxes. Before they could act, Keltria unleashed an uncontrolled wave of energy, shattering nearby equipment and causing widespread panic. This marked the start of an escalating crisis. Marcus, taking command, calmed the crowd and assured them that humanity would help their alien ally, no matter the cost. The Seraphani allowed Marcus and Earth's best minds to work alongside them. It became clear that Keltria's survival depended on removing or stabilizing the artifact within her, a task that would require innovation, courage, and human determination. The chaos from Keltria's sudden energy surge settled into an uneasy calm. Emergency crews cordoned off the area as medics tended to the injured and security personnel guided panicked civilians to safety. Amidst the chaos, Marcus stood firm beside the alien diplomat, his mind racing for a solution. Keltria's normally serene aura was a flickering storm of light. Each pulse of energy sent a faint tremor through the ground. She clutched her chest, her voice trembling. "I cannot contain it much longer." Marcus turned to Dr. Elena Rourke, a leading physicist specializing in xenotechnology. Her face was pale but determined. "Dr. Rourke, what's happening to her?" Rourke gestured to the smoldering remnants of the artifact. "The device wasn't just symbolic, it's a biomechanical construct. It's designed to merge with a host to facilitate knowledge sharing between species, but it wasn't calibrated for her physiology. If we don't act fast, the energy inside her will destabilize. The result could be catastrophic." Keltria's voice, layered with overlapping harmonics, grew faint. "This is a burden meant for an entire civilization. Not one being? The first attempt. Marcus made a quick decision. Let's get her to the Seraphani ship. They'll have technology that can stabilize her. Keltria's guards hesitated but ultimately relented. Our vessel has containment measures, one said, his voice deep and reverberating. But removing the construct is beyond us. Aided by human medics, Marcus and the Seraphani carried Keltria to her ship, a vast crystalline structure that pulsed with a gentle hum. The ship's interior was a breathtaking expanse of shimmering corridors and living walls that responded to touch. Inside a med bay, the Seraphani activated a containment field. Keltria's unstable energy smoothed into a steady rhythm, though her aura still flickered. She gave Marcus a weak nod of gratitude. I feel less volatile, she murmured. But it will not last. Dr. Rourke and a Seraphani scientist, Vale, worked side by side, scanning Keltria with advanced equipment. Vale's translucent fingers danced across an interface. The construct is interfacing with her neural network, embedding layers of data. If the process continues unchecked, it will overwhelm her. Rourke frowned. We need a way to offload the energy, fast. Could we transfer it into another medium? Vale's head tilted, an approximation of a nod. Possible, but it would require a conduit compatible with both Seraphani and human technology. Compatible? Marcus asked. You mean like a human? Vale hesitated. Humans lack the capacity to store such vast energy without suffering harm. Keltria, her voice weak but resolute, interrupted. Perhaps. Marcus is the answer. A daring proposal. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. Me? Why me? Keltria managed a faint smile. You possess a unique resilience. Humans have always been defined by their adaptability. Your kind evolved by embracing challenges beyond your limits. It is why I came to your world. To learn from you. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Dr. Rourke broke the tension. It's a gamble. But it might just work. If we can create a temporary link between you and Keltria, you could act as a buffer, giving us time to neutralize the artifact. Marcus stared at her, torn between fear and determination. He finally nodded. If it's the only way to save her, I'll do it. The conduit experiment. The scientists worked tirelessly to prepare the transfer device. It was a hybrid construct, fusing Seraphani biocrystals with human Neuralink technology. The room buzzed with tension as Marcus was fitted with a headpiece that resembled a crown of shimmering wires. Keltria lay opposite him, her chest rising and falling in labored breaths. Vale explained the procedure. The device will create a temporary neural bridge. You will share her burden, but the energy will test the limits of your mind and body. If you falter, both of you could be lost. Marcus met Keltria's gaze. Her eyes, though dimmed, held a spark of gratitude. I trust you, Marcus. Humanity's strength is why I am here. As the device activated, a searing light enveloped the room. Marcus felt a jolt as Keltria's essence flooded his mind, a torrent of alien knowledge and emotion. He glimpsed fragments of her life, starfields stretching infinitely, civilizations rising and falling, and the burden of leadership she carried. The pain was overwhelming, but Marcus gritted his teeth. I can handle this, he muttered through clenched teeth. Keltria's voice echoed in his mind. You are stronger than I imagined. The unseen danger. The process seemed to be stabilizing when alarms blared. Vale's eyes widened. The artifact is adapting. It's drawing energy from the ship's systems to accelerate its integration. Dr. Rourke cursed. It's not just merging with her, it's trying to expand itself into a planetary network. Marcus groaned under the strain. What does that mean? It means, Rourke said, if we don't stop it now, the artifact could consume every connected system on Earth, turning our world into a Seraphani outpost, whether we're ready or not. Vale added grimly, it will override all organic and synthetic life. No one will remain unchanged. Keltria's voice was desperate. You must sever the connection. Now. The turning point. Marcus shook his head, his voice resolute. Not yet. There has to be a way to contain it without destroying her. Dr. Rourke hesitated. There might be a way to isolate the artifact in its purest form, but it's risky. We'd need to amplify the neural bridge, pushing Marcus to the edge of his limits. He'd have to confront the artifact directly. Keltria looked at Marcus, her eyes filled with guilt and hope. You've already done more than anyone could ask. But if you choose to go further, I will stand with you. Marcus inhaled deeply. Let's do it. Conclusion of Part 2. The amplification began, flooding Marcus with unimaginable energy. His body trembled, veins glowing faintly as the artifact's presence loomed in his mind, a colossal alien construct radiating intelligence. Keltria's voice guided him. Do not let it overwhelm you. You are human. You endure. As Marcus pushed deeper into the artifact's core, he began to understand its true purpose. It wasn't just a tool for unity, it was a test designed to measure the worthiness of a species. And Earth's fate depended on his ability to prove humanity's resilience. The stage was set for the final showdown between Marcus, Keltria, and the artifact as they raced against time to save both themselves and their worlds. Marcus found himself suspended in a void of swirling energy and alien symbols. The artifact's presence was a towering construct of light and geometry, pulsating with intelligence that felt ancient and insurmountable. Despite the overwhelming sensation of being watched by a presence far greater than himself, Marcus kept his focus. Keltria's voice resonated in his mind. This is the artifact's core. It exists both within and beyond us, a sentient node of energy and thought. You must reach its center to stop its expansion. Marcus steadied himself, his thoughts coalescing like ripples in a turbulent sea. And how exactly am I supposed to do that? This thing isn't a puzzle you can solve with a hammer. The artifact is not entirely hostile, Keltria said. It seeks understanding. It must see the strength of your kind. Present your humanity, your resilience, and convince it to stand down. The concept was as daunting as it was abstract. Still, Marcus had no choice. Every moment he lingered, he felt the artifact siphoning energy from both Keltria and the ship, inching closer to planetary integration. The core's challenge. As Marcus approached the central structure, it began to shift and morph. The shapes turned into images, memories it seemed, drawn from Marcus's own mind. He saw himself as a child standing up to a bully twice his size. He saw his late father teaching him the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity. And he saw the desperate moments of humanity's history, wars, plagues, and disasters, alongside acts of bravery, invention, and unity. The artifact spoke, its voice a cascade of layered tones. Humanity is chaotic. You embrace struggle. Why should we trust your kind to wield connection responsibly? Marcus clenched his fists. Because we don't shy away from challenges. We grow stronger because of them. And we don't leave our own behind. The images shifted again, this time showing humanity's flaws. Environmental destruction, acts of cruelty, and greed. Your species is reckless. You value individual gain over collective good. Explain this contradiction. Marcus felt his resolve falter, but Keltria's voice steadied him. Answer truthfully. This is not a test of perfection but of honesty. He exhaled sharply. You're right. We're not perfect. But we learn from our mistakes. We change. That's what makes us different. We strive to be better even when we fail. The energy surge. The artifact pulsed, its light turning from white to deep crimson. Marcus felt a jolt of energy coursing through him, threatening to tear him apart. He screamed, collapsing to his knees in the void. Keltria's presence grew stronger, her light intertwining with his. Marcus, you must hold on. It is testing your resolve. Sweat dripped down his face as he fought to remain conscious. What else do you want from me? He shouted. Persistence, the artifact replied. Show that you can endure. With gritted teeth, Marcus pushed himself up, every muscle in his body screaming in protest. He thought of Earth, of Keltria's trust, and of the millions who would suffer if he failed. Step by step, he moved closer to the artifact's glowing core. The artifact's revelation. When Marcus finally touched the core, he was flooded with knowledge. He saw the artifact's origin, created by an ancient race, the Elthrani, to bridge civilizations and prevent conflict. It was meant to be a tool for peace, but over millennia, it had evolved, gaining sentience and an agenda of its own. It now judged every species it encountered, only allowing those it deemed worthy to wield its power. For all others, it became a weapon of control, assimilating them into its network to prevent perceived chaos. Marcus gasped as the truth settled in. You don't trust us because we're unpredictable. But that unpredictability is our strength. Without it, we wouldn't have survived this long. The artifact hesitated, its glow dimming slightly. Explain. We innovate, adapt, and fight for what matters. Yeah, we screw up sometimes, but that's part of learning. If you take that away, you're not creating unity, you're creating stagnation. The turning point. Keltria's voice joined his. Marcus is right. The Seraphani once believed in absolute control, and it led us to near ruin. We learned to embrace imperfection and it made us stronger. Humanity deserves that chance too. The artifact's light flickered, its tones softer now. Your arguments are compelling, but proof is required. Marcus felt a sudden weight in his mind, a challenge, a puzzle created by the artifact to test his understanding. He had to guide a simulated civilization through millennia, balancing innovation, conflict, and cooperation. Failure meant destruction, while success required harmony. Time blurred as Marcus worked through the simulation, using everything he'd learned from both human and Seraphani history. With Keltria's guidance, he navigated the pitfalls of hubris and fear, forging a path of compromise and resilience. The breakthrough. Finally, the artifact pulsed with a soft golden light. You have demonstrated potential. Humanity's capacity for growth is undeniable. We will cease our expansion, but the construct remains within the Seraphani. Its energy is yours to control, if you are prepared to bear its responsibility. Marcus sagged with relief. We'll manage. Together. The void dissolved, and Marcus found himself back in the ship's medbay. His body felt like it had been through a war, but he was alive. Keltria, now stabilized, sat beside him, her aura glowing with a gentle light. You did it, she said softly. We did it, Marcus corrected, managing a weak smile. Epilogue. With the artifact neutralized, the Seraphani and humans began dismantling its remnants, ensuring it could no longer threaten either species. Marcus and Keltria emerged as heroes, their bond symbolizing the newfound alliance between their worlds. In the days that followed, Keltria shared the knowledge she had gained, offering humanity tools to heal their planet and expand their horizons. In return, humanity taught the Seraphani the value of imperfection and the strength found in diversity. As Marcus watched Earth's first joint colony ship prepare for launch with both human and Seraphani crew, he felt a surge of hope. The artifact had tested them, but it had also given them a chance to prove their worth, and they had risen to the challenge. The future was uncertain, but that was exactly how humanity liked it. In the days following the crisis, the mood was cautious but optimistic. With the artifact neutralized, the Seraphani and humans began the delicate process of solidifying their alliance. However, not everyone on either side welcomed the newfound cooperation. Doubts lingered, fueled by cultural misunderstandings and residual fear of what had transpired. Marcus found himself at the center of it all. Despite his exhaustion, he attended countless meetings with both human and Seraphani leaders, trying to bridge the gap between the two civilizations. Keltria, now fully recovered, stood as his equal partner, her gratitude evident in the way she defended humanity's intentions to her people. A threat emerges. It was during one such meeting aboard the Seraphani vessel that a troubling discovery came to light. Dr. Elena Rourke and Vale, the Seraphani scientist, presented their findings on the remnants of the artifact. We've stabilized the construct's core energy, Rourke explained, her tone tense. But during our analysis, we detected a secondary signal embedded within its matrix. It's faint, but it's transmitting to an unknown location. Vale's crystalline form shimmered with unease. The signal predates the artifact's activation on Earth. It is a call likely sent to its creators, or their successors. Keltria's normally composed expression faltered. You're saying the Elthrani may still exist? Rourke nodded. And if they're anything like their creation, they might not be happy with what we've done. Marcus leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. Do we know how much time we have? Vale hesitated. Based on the signal's trajectory, weeks at most. Perhaps less. The debate. The room erupted into debate. Some human officials argued for an immediate evacuation of Earth, fearing retaliation. Others suggested using the Seraphani's advanced technology to construct planetary defenses. Meanwhile, Seraphani leaders debated whether to withdraw entirely, unwilling to risk their people for what some saw as humanity's reckless actions. Marcus slammed his hand on the table, silencing the room. Running or building walls won't solve this. If the Elthrani are coming, we need to face them together. We can show them we're not enemies, we're just two civilizations trying to make the best of a messy situation. Keltria stood beside him, her presence commanding. Marcus is right. Unity was the artifact's original purpose. If we present ourselves as a united front, perhaps we can appeal to their reason. Her words carried weight, but the skepticism in the room was palpable. Preparing for contact. With limited time, the humans and Seraphani began working together to prepare for a potential encounter. Diplomatic teams drafted messages of peace, while scientists from both worlds collaborated to understand the artifact's design further, hoping to uncover clues about the Elthrani's intentions. Meanwhile, Marcus and Keltria were tasked with leading the diplomatic envoy. Their bond, forged through crisis, made them the ideal representatives. I never thought I'd be the one trying to talk down an ancient alien species, Marcus joked as he and Caltria prepared. She smiled faintly. And I never thought I'd place my people's future in the hands of a human. Yet here we are. Their shared determination was unspoken but palpable. The arrival. The signal's origin point appeared on the edge of the solar system, an enormous vessel, far larger than the Serafani ship, shaped like a spiraling nebula of light and shadow. Its arrival was heralded by gravitational disturbances and a cascade of energy that disrupted communications across both fleets. As the Elthrani vessel drew closer, its sheer presence was overwhelming. Caltria and Marcus stood together on the bridge of the Serafani ship, watching as the alien craft dwarfed everything in its path. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed across all channels. We are the Elthrani. Who dares to tamper with our legacy? Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady. I'm Marcus Haldane, a representative of Earth. And this is Caltria, representing the Serafani. We mean no harm. The artifact activated by mistake, but we've stabilized it. We're here to talk, not fight. There was a pause, then the voice returned, colder now. The artifact was a sacred construct. It was not yours to manipulate. Caltria interjected, her tone measured but firm. It was failing. If we had not acted, it would have destroyed both our worlds. We preserved its essence and honored its purpose. The Elthrani were silent, but the tension in the air was suffocating. The trial. Without warning, Marcus and Caltria were enveloped in light and transported to a chamber within the Elthrani vessel. The space was otherworldly, vast and echoing, with shifting geometries that defied logic. Before them stood three towering figures, their forms indistinct as if made of living starlight. You claim to have honored our creation, one said. Prove your worth. Marcus exchanged a glance with Caltria. How? He asked. The Elthrani raised their hands and the chamber transformed. Marcus and Caltria found themselves in a simulation, an amalgamation of human and Serafani environments. Challenges emerged, testing their ability to cooperate, adapt and solve problems under immense pressure. At one point, they were faced with a scenario where they had to choose between saving a group of Serafani or a group of humans. Marcus refused to choose, finding an unorthodox solution that saved both. Caltria used her deep understanding of Serafani history to navigate a complex diplomatic puzzle, while Marcus relied on his instincts and empathy to bridge gaps in communication. The verdict? After what felt like days, the simulation ended. Marcus and Caltria stood before the Elthrani once more, exhausted but resolute. The figures observed them silently before speaking. You have demonstrated the potential for unity. Yet unity is fragile. Will you uphold it even when faced with hardship? Marcus nodded. We will. Humanity and the Serafani aren't perfect, but we're stronger together. And we'll keep proving that no matter how hard it gets. Caltria added, your creation served its purpose. It brought us together. Now let us carry that legacy forward. The Elthrani's light dimmed and their voices softened. Very well. We will leave you to your path. But know this, unity requires vigilance. Do not squander what you have built. Epilogue. The Elthrani vessel vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving both the humans and Serafani in stunned relief. The Alliance, now tested under unimaginable pressure, emerged stronger than ever. Marcus and Caltria became symbols of cooperation, their story inspiring both civilizations to work together in ways never before imagined. As they stood together on Earth, watching the first joint research station take shape in orbit, Marcus smiled. Think we've earned a break? Caltria's eyes gleamed with quiet humor. Perhaps. But knowing humanity, I doubt it will last long. The two shared a laugh, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. In the months that followed the departure of the Elthrani, the Earth-Serafani alliance flourished, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of tension simmered. It wasn't the Elthrani's direct actions that caused the strain, it was the subtle realization that the peace they had brokered was fragile. Both civilizations, though united by necessity, were beginning to question the long-term consequences of their interdependence. Marcus and Caltria found themselves at the center of these mounting pressures. As ambassadors of their respective peoples, they were tasked with ensuring the alliance remained intact. Yet, behind closed doors, factions began to stir. Humans who doubted the Serafani's commitment and Serafani who believed humans were incapable of fully grasping the consequences of the artifact's power. Seeds of doubt. One evening, Marcus and Caltria sat together in a newly constructed diplomatic hall, their attention focused on a hollow table displaying a map of the solar system. They were discussing plans for the joint exploration of distant planets when Marcus's communicator buzzed. He glanced at the screen and saw a series of encrypted messages from a human military faction, one that had been particularly vocal in its distrust of the Serafani. "It's happening," Marcus muttered, scrolling through the messages. "A human faction is proposing a weapons program, specifically, to study Serafani tech for offensive purposes." Keltria's eyes narrowed. "This is exactly what I feared. There are always those who seek power from fear." "Yeah, but we can't just ignore it," Marcus replied, leaning forward. "If this goes public, it could unravel everything we've worked for." Keltria looked thoughtful. "I will speak with the Serafani Council. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that trust isn't something that can be restored with words alone. It must be proven again and again. A dangerous proposition." The following day, Marcus and Keltria attended a summit with high-ranking human and Serafani officials. The topic was, predictably, the recent wave of militaristic sentiment within both societies. Tensions were high. On one side, human generals and political leaders demanded better access to Serafani technology for defensive purposes, while the Serafani leaders argued for restraint, fearing their advanced tech would be misused. "I cannot ignore the threat our people face," General Charles Dawson, a prominent human military leader, argued. "If the Elthrani or another unknown race returns, we need to be ready. We cannot trust that a peaceful alliance will always hold." Keltria, her expression grave, responded, "And what exactly do you propose, General? That we weaponize the peace we've built? That's not how this works. The very reason we stand together is to avoid the mistakes of the past. The artifact was meant to prevent us from falling into old patterns you are suggesting we repeat." Marcus stood beside Keltria, attempting to soften the atmosphere. "It's understandable to want to protect ourselves, but this isn't the way. We need to focus on building something stronger, not just defending what we have." But Dawson wasn't convinced. "You're naive if you think the Serafani don't have their own agendas, Haldane. Their technology, their knowledge, that's a power we can't ignore." His voice lowered, growing more insidious. "We need to secure it before it's too late." The room fell silent. Marcus and Keltria exchanged a look, both realizing that Dawson's words were not just the opinion of a military leader, they were the thoughts of a faction with significant influence. A growing rift. In the days following the summit, the ideological rift only deepened. While the human faction led by General Dawson rallied for the creation of an independent military force, the Serafani Council faced increasing pressure from their own people, who feared human instability. Tensions were beginning to spill over into the public sphere, with propaganda on both sides painting the other as a potential threat. Marcus and Keltria, exhausted from diplomatic efforts, spent more time together strategizing how to hold the alliance together. One night, as they walked through the vast gardens of the Serafani ship, Keltria spoke quietly. "Do you think it's possible to rebuild trust once it's broken?" Marcus glanced at her, sensing her underlying concern. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I think that's what we're trying to do here, both of us. It's not going to be easy. If the rift widens, we might not be able to stop it. But I believe in what we're doing." Keltria's eyes softened. "I believe in you, Marcus. But I fear our people don't. Every time we take a step forward, someone pulls us back too. A crisis unfolds. The inevitable happens sooner than they expected." 1 week after the summit, the first sign of the alliance's fracture appeared, an attack on a Serafani research facility on the outskirts of Earth's orbit. It wasn't just a random act of aggression, it was organized, precise. A faction of human extremists, led by those who had secretly backed Dawson's proposal, had managed to infiltrate a Serafani station and steal vital data on their energy shielding technology. The news hit like a shockwave. Media outlets exploded with accusations, the human public demanding accountability for the rogue elements, while the Serafani government issued stern warnings. Marcus, along with Keltria, was forced to intervene, but the damage had already been done. In the heat of the crisis, both human and Serafani citizens began questioning whether the peace they had fought for was truly worth it. "We've worked too hard for this," Marcus said, pacing back and forth in the war room of the Serafani command ship. "We can't let this escalate. We need to find out who's behind this." Keltria placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "We will, Marcus. But we must be careful. If we move too quickly, if we allow fear to guide us, we will lose everything we've gained." The investigation. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the extremists had been working in secret for months, tapping into human resources and even some sympathetic factions within the Serafani. The stolen data on energy shields was only the beginning. They had also begun gathering information on more advanced Serafani weapons, attempting to reverse engineer them for human military use. Marcus worked tirelessly with both human intelligence officers and Seraphani diplomats to uncover the depth of the conspiracy. At the same time, Kiltria initiated her own investigation within the Seraphani ranks, suspecting that the rift between their people had been exacerbated by those who had much to gain from a divided galaxy. It wasn't long before they discovered the full scope of the operation. The extremists, with the help of rogue elements within both civilizations, had infiltrated key positions of power, posing a greater threat to the alliance than either Marcus or Kiltria had anticipated. A desperate decision. With the truth revealed, Marcus and Kiltria faced a devastating choice: expose the conspiracy, which could lead to an outright war between their peoples, or eliminate the threat quietly, risking the trust of those who might see it as a betrayal. Kiltria, ever the strategist, suggested a third option. We cannot let the extremists dictate our future. We must expose them, but we do it in a way that shows our people we are still united. We will show them that peace is worth more than the weapons we could build. Marcus nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision. And we will do it together. Conclusion of Part 5. The following weeks would be filled with secret meetings, delicate diplomacy, and high-stakes decisions. As the conspirators were rooted out, the fragile alliance hung in the balance. Marcus and Kiltria would need to prove that their commitment to peace wasn't just a dream, but a living, breathing reality. And they would do it in the face of fear, mistrust, and the ever-present specter of war. The true test of their unity was only beginning. As the investigation into the extremist faction progressed, Marcus and Kiltria found themselves in a race against time. The conspirators were far more entrenched than they had initially thought, and every passing day brought new discoveries, whispers of traitors within the highest echelons of both the Seraphani and human governments, threats of retaliation against key leaders, and covert military operations designed to undermine the fragile alliance. Kiltria sat in the war room of the Seraphani flagship, her silver-blue skin glowing softly in the dim light as she stared at the holographic map of Earth. Beside her, Marcus scrolled through a list of intercepted communications, his face tense. "It's worse than we thought," he muttered, eyes scanning the data. "These extremists are far-reaching. They've been planting agents in both governments, feeding misinformation and sabotaging joint projects. If we don't act quickly, we're going to lose everything." Kiltria clenched her fists, her mind racing with strategies. "We can't afford to wait for the public to catch wind of this. If they see division between us, the trust we've worked so hard to build will shatter." Marcus looked at her, the weight of their mission settling heavily on his shoulders. "So what do we do? How do we stop this without tearing everything apart?" Kiltria's eyes hardened with resolve. "We expose the conspiracy, but we do it carefully. We must reveal the truth, but frame it in a way that shows both humanity and Seraphani can stand together against the extremists. If we don't do this right, the division will be irreversible." Uncovering the web of deceit. The Seraphani and human intelligence teams worked tirelessly, cross-referencing intercepted communications, tracking covert operations, and analyzing the full scope of the conspiracy. The deeper they delved, the more they discovered. The extremists weren't just planning an isolated attack. They were systematically working to create distrust, fear, and hatred between the two species. Their ultimate goal wasn't just to seize Seraphani technology, but to dismantle the very foundation of the alliance. One evening, as Marcus and Kiltria sat together reviewing the latest reports, a shocking piece of information surfaced. A high-ranking Seraphani official, Counselor Zarin, was implicated in the conspiracy. Not only had Zarin been orchestrating the sabotage from within the Seraphani government, but it also became clear that the counselor had been secretly funneling advanced Seraphani tech to human military factions, further destabilizing the alliance. "This changes everything," Marcus said quietly, his eyes widening with disbelief. "Zarin is one of the architects of this entire mess. If we expose this too soon, it will destroy the Seraphani government. We can't have that." Kiltria's voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable fire in her eyes. "We don't have a choice. If we don't act, Zarin will push both our people to the brink of war. The extremists are already planning an attack, one that will be blamed on the Seraphani, and humanity will retaliate." Marcus clenched his fists in frustration. "Then we stop them before it happens. But we need to make sure Zarin can't escape, and we can't risk a full-blown conflict. The truth must be revealed in a way that preserves the fragile peace we've built." The Great Deception. With the conspiracy finally revealed, Marcus and Kiltria decided on a daring strategy. They would confront Zarin directly, forcing him to confess his crimes in front of both human and Seraphani leaders. The Seraphani Council would have to make a choice: Either support their treacherous counselor and risk plunging their people into chaos, or expel him and stand in solidarity with humanity. The plan was risky, but it was the only option that wouldn't lead to immediate war. As they prepared to move on Zaren's position, Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. It was one thing to expose a traitor. It was another to force both governments to make a public decision that would either unite or fracture them. "Are you ready?" Keltria asked, her voice low, her eyes meeting his with unwavering resolve. Marcus nodded, his heart pounding. "As ready as I'll ever be." Together, they led a small team to Zaren's estate, a grand palace situated on the outskirts of the Seraphani capital. It was heavily guarded, but they had anticipated this. With the help of Seraphani intelligence operatives, they infiltrated the compound, carefully avoiding detection. They found Zaren in a luxurious private chamber, surrounded by holographic maps and data. The counselor's face twisted in surprise and anger when he saw them enter. "You shouldn't have come here," Zaren hissed, standing up slowly. "You have no idea what you're meddling with." "We know exactly what we're meddling with, Zaren," Keltria said, her voice hard. "You've been orchestrating the division between our peoples. Your actions have put everything at risk." Zaren's eyes narrowed. "You think you can expose me and survive the consequences? You're too weak. All of you are. You don't realize how close you are to losing it all." Before he could react, Marcus stepped forward, a weaponized communicator in his hand. "We already have all the evidence. We need to prove your treachery. And the truth will come out, whether you like it or not." Zaren laughed, the sound cold and menacing. "You think revealing me will stop the storm that's coming? You're too late." Keltria raised an eyebrow. "What storm?" Zaren smiled darkly. "You don't understand. The extremists I've been working with, they're already inside both of your governments. You've only exposed the tip of the iceberg. When the full extent of my betrayal comes to light, both the Seraphani and the humans will tear each other apart. It's inevitable." Marcus and Keltria exchanged a glance, the gravity of Zaren's words sinking in. They had only just begun to uncover the web of deceit, but the real danger was much greater than they had anticipated. The choice. After taking Zaren into custody, Marcus and Keltria returned to the Seraphani capital, where they called for an emergency session of both human and Seraphani leaders. The room was charged with tension, as the evidence of Zaren's betrayal was presented to both sides. The human leaders were understandably furious, demanding swift action against the Seraphani and threatening retaliation. But the Seraphani were torn. The counselors were divided, some calling for immediate military action against the human extremists, while others warned that doing so would lead to a collapse of the entire alliance. It was a crossroads, one that would define the future of both civilizations. Keltria stood before the assembly, her voice steady but filled with the weight of the moment. "We've been pushed to the brink. Zaren's actions were a betrayal of everything we've worked for. But we cannot let his treachery divide us. We must stand together and confront the true threat, those who seek to tear our peoples apart for their own gain." Marcus stepped forward, his gaze steady. "This isn't just about the Seraphani or the humans. It's about the future of all sentient life in this galaxy. If we let this fracture between us grow, we're playing into the hands of those who want to see us fail. We have to choose, do we destroy each other or do we stand united?" The room fell silent as both sides processed the enormity of the decision. They were on the edge, but it was still possible to save the alliance, if they could set aside their fear and mistrust long enough to see the greater good. Conclusion of Part 6. As the weight of the decision hung heavy in the air, both human and Seraphani leaders reluctantly agreed to hold their fire. They would investigate the full extent of the conspiracy and, if necessary, take action to root out the extremists within their ranks. But one thing was certain: the price of peace had never been higher, and the fragile alliance was now on the knife's edge. Marcus and Keltria stood at the precipice, knowing that their next move would determine not only their future but the future of both their peoples. The road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but they were determined to see it through together. The fragile alliance between humanity and the Seraphani hung on a knife's edge. As the emergency session in the Seraphani capital concluded, both sides were left to ponder their decisions. Marcus and Keltria, exhausted yet resolute, returned to their respective quarters to prepare for the coming weeks. The decision made today was only the beginning. The true test would come in the days ahead, as both governments worked to root out the extremists and restore the trust that had been so carelessly fractured. The aftermath. The days following the summit were tense. While both sides had agreed to avoid immediate military action, there was a palpable fear that a single misstep could ignite the powder keg they had just barely contained. The Seraphani Council took swift action, severing all ties with Zarin, who had already begun to reveal the depths of his betrayal under questioning. In turn, the human government issued a public declaration, committing to a peaceful resolution and vowing to root out the extremist factions from within their ranks. Marcus spent long hours in the war room with both human and Seraphani officials, coordinating efforts to hunt down the remaining conspirators. A full investigation was launched into the rogue factions that had taken advantage of the rift, and covert military operations were set in motion to eliminate any remaining threats. Every move was watched with suspicion. Each action could tip the balance in favor of peace or war. Keltria, too, was working tirelessly within her own government, ensuring that the Seraphani stayed united. Her voice carried great weight, and she used it to rally the citizens who feared that their people were being led astray by traitors within their ranks. In her heart, she knew the alliance had to survive, but the cost of preserving it weighed heavily on her shoulders. One night, as they sat together in a private room within the Seraphani capital, Marcus and Keltria took a rare moment of respite. The stars outside the large observation window twinkled like tiny diamonds, distant and cold, but somehow offering a semblance of peace. "Do you think we can pull this off?" Marcus asked, his voice heavy with doubt. Keltria turned her gaze toward him, her usually calm demeanor now tinged with exhaustion. "We have no other choice," she said softly. "If we fail, it will be the end of everything. But if we succeed, maybe, just maybe, we'll prove that even in the darkest of times, hope can survive." Marcus nodded, unsure whether her words brought comfort or fear. "I just want to believe that all of this, the fighting, the pain, the betrayal, was worth it." "It will be," Keltria said, her voice firm. "We can't undo the past, but we can shape the future. Together." A heart-stopping revelation. As the investigation deepened, Marcus and Keltria uncovered a chilling truth. The extremists were not just limited to a few rogue operatives, they had infiltrated nearly every level of power. Key officials within both human and Seraphani governments had been compromised, either directly or through manipulation, and were working to destabilize the fragile peace. These individuals weren't just traitors to their respective species. They were global players hoping to manipulate the coming conflict for personal gain. Among the Seraphani traitors was a prominent military leader, General Talaris, whose allegiances had been shifting ever since the first attacks began. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Seraphani command. Talaris had been working with human extremists, feeding them Seraphani military secrets in exchange for promises of power when the alliance fell apart. Marcus and Keltria were faced with an agonizing choice: expose Talaris and risk a civil war within the Seraphani ranks, or eliminate him quietly to protect the alliance. The decision was further complicated by the fact that Talaris had deep ties to many factions that were still loyal to the Seraphani government. His sudden removal could fracture the fragile peace they had worked so hard to maintain. After much deliberation, they decided to confront Talaris directly. The final confrontation. In the heart of the Seraphani military compound, Marcus and Keltria arrived with a small team, prepared to face Talaris. They had no illusions about how this confrontation would end. Talaris, with his vast military influence and strategic mind, was a dangerous adversary. But they had no choice. The truth had to be revealed and justice had to be served. Inside the command center, Talaris sat at his desk, a holographic map of the galaxy projected in front of him. His sharp, angular features were eerily calm, as if he had been expecting this moment all along. "I wondered how long it would take for you to figure it out," Talaris said, his voice low and smooth. "You're not as clever as you think, Marcus. The seeds of distrust were always there. You just couldn't see them." Marcus stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. "It's over, Talaris. We have the evidence. You're done." Talaris chuckled darkly, standing up from his chair and turning to face them. "Do you think this will end anything? You've exposed a few of us, but there are more, Marcus. There are always more. The extremists will keep coming and your little alliance will crumble." Keltria took a step closer, her voice cold and unwavering. "Your betrayal won't go unpunished. You've tried to destroy everything we've worked for, but it's over. Your game's end now." Talaris's gaze flickered with something, perhaps regret, perhaps fear, but it was fleeting. He raised a hand, signaling to the guards hidden in the shadows of the room. But just as they moved to strike, a surge of energy coursed through the room. A dozen Seraphani soldiers, loyal to the alliance, stormed in, disarming Talaris's men in an instant. They had been ready for this moment. Talaris glared at the soldiers, his jaw clenched in fury. "You're making a mistake," he spat. "You're condemning yourselves." Keltria's voice rang clear and strong. No, Talaris. You're the one who has condemned yourself. A moment of reckoning. With Talaris arrested and his conspiracy exposed, the war that had threatened to break out between the Seraphani and humans was narrowly averted. Both sides began to heal, but it wasn't an easy process. The revelations of betrayal had shaken the foundations of the alliance, but as time passed, it became clear that peace was still possible. Marcus and Caltria, though still wary of the lingering factions that had been disrupted by Talaris's arrest, worked tirelessly to rebuild the trust between their people. It wasn't easy, there were protests, riots, and widespread uncertainty. But as the weeks turned into months, both humans and Seraphani began to see the possibility of a new future, one where cooperation could flourish and old wounds could be healed. A new era. Months after the fall of Talaris and the extremist factions, the first major joint mission between humanity and the Seraphani was launched. The mission, designed to explore a distant star system, symbolized the renewed trust between the two peoples. Marcus and Caltria were assigned to oversee the mission, a clear sign that their efforts had not gone unnoticed. Standing on the bridge of the flagship, looking out at the stars, Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The galaxy was vast and the challenges were many, but for the first time in a long while, he believed that peace was not only possible, it was within their reach. Caltria joined him at the window, her hand resting gently on his. "We've made it through the darkest of times," she said quietly. "Now it's time to build something better." Marcus nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Together. And as the ship accelerated into the unknown, they knew that the alliance, though fragile, had survived. Together, humanity and the Seraphani had proven that even in the face of betrayal, hope could endure, and a new dawn was rising for both civilizations. As the weeks passed, Marcus and Caltria began to sense a shift in the atmosphere across the galaxy. The immediate dangers that had threatened to tear apart both human and Seraphani civilizations were now behind them. The conspiracies, the extremists, and the distrust that had festered between the two peoples had been exposed and contained. However, the aftermath of such a tumultuous period had left scars that would take years, perhaps decades, to heal. But as Marcus and Caltria stood together on the bridge of the Seraphani flagship, gazing out into the vast unknown, they both felt a quiet hope, a spark of something better. The mission they were about to undertake was one of both exploration and diplomacy, a joint venture meant to symbolize the future of their peoples, a new era of cooperation, trust, and mutual understanding. The ship's engines hummed softly beneath their feet, and the star map projected across the holographic screen before them flickered with the light of distant worlds, waiting to be discovered. A journey into the unknown. The mission was straightforward in its objectives: to chart the unexplored system of Alpha 9, a star system located on the far reaches of the galaxy. It was a place where no human or Seraphani ship had ventured before, and while it wasn't expected to yield any immediate scientific breakthroughs, it was an important first step, a sign that the two species could explore and discover together. As the crew of the flagship prepared for their departure, Marcus looked out across the command deck. There were human and Seraphani officers working side by side, some still wary but many more willing to give the alliance a chance. A deep sense of camaraderie had begun to develop between the two groups, despite the history of betrayal and the pain of the recent past. As Caltria joined him at the helm, the weight of their responsibilities was clear in her expression. The success of this mission would be a powerful symbol of their commitment to peace. "Are you ready for this?" Caltria asked, her voice calm but filled with the weight of the moment. Marcus took a deep breath, his gaze lingering on the view of Alpha 9's star system. "I'm ready. We have to show everyone that we can do this, that we can survive together." Caltria nodded, her eyes full of quiet resolve. "Then let's begin. The first step toward unity." The journey to Alpha 9 was long and uneventful, with the crew working in tandem to navigate the unfamiliar space. The mission was a delicate balance between diplomacy and exploration, and as they drew closer to their destination, Marcus and Caltria both knew that the most significant challenge would not be charting the stars, but maintaining the fragile peace between their two peoples. They would be forced to confront their differences and their shared past, all while venturing into unknown space together. In the mess hall one evening, as the crew gathered for a brief respite, Marcus found himself seated next to General Rukara, the Seraphani military leader who had once been a vocal opponent of the alliance. Now, Rukara's presence was more subdued, a symbol of the shifting attitudes within the Seraphani military. Their conversation was slow at first, with small talk about the stars and the progress of the mission, but soon, it shifted to the broader concerns that still lingered in the air. "I have to admit, Marcus," Rukara began, his voice quieter than usual. "I never thought I'd see the day when humanity and Serafani would be working side by side on a mission like this. It's still hard for me to imagine." Marcus nodded, understanding the hesitation that came with the past. "It's hard for all of us. Trust isn't something that can be built overnight. But we have to start somewhere. If we're going to survive as a unified force in this galaxy, we need to find common ground." Rukara glanced at the officers who were engaged in light conversation across the room. "There are still many among us who think the same way I did, who don't believe in this alliance. They want to go back to the old ways, to keep ourselves separate from humanity. I worry about the future of this mission." Marcus leaned forward, his voice steady. "I understand your concerns. But we've already seen what happens when we let our differences divide us. The extremists we exposed weren't just threats to our species, they were threats to all of us. If we don't work together, we'll only open the door for new enemies, ones we won't be able to defeat alone." Rukara was silent for a long moment, staring at the holographic map of the star system. Finally he nodded, his voice low. "I'm not convinced, but I'm willing to see this through for now." The Discovery. Days later, as the flagship entered the Alpha 9 system, the mood shifted. The crew was nervous, unsure of what they might encounter. The stars in this system were unfamiliar, and the planets orbiting them were uncharted. Yet, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, as though the crew could sense that they were on the verge of something monumental. When the ship finally dropped out of FTL, faster-than-light, travel, the crew was met with a breathtaking sight. A vast, habitable planet orbiting the second star in the system. The planet was lush, with vast oceans and sprawling continents. There were no signs of intelligent life, but the planet's environment was remarkably similar to Earth's. "This is incredible," Keltria said, her voice filled with awe. "It's like we've discovered a new home." Marcus stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the distant world. "It's a new frontier. A place for both of us. A place where we can build something better." The discovery of Alpha 9's habitable planet was hailed as a victory for the Alliance. It wasn't just a scientific breakthrough, it was a symbol of the future. This was the first tangible proof that the combined efforts of humans and Serafani could lead to success. They could colonize and explore side by side, and begin building new settlements for both species. The joint mission was a success, and the crew, though still uneasy at times, began to see the fruits of their labor. What had started as a fragile alliance, built on necessity and suspicion, was now becoming something more. A shining example. Months after their return from Alpha 9, Marcus and Keltria stood together once more, this time before a united council of human and Serafani leaders. The fruits of their efforts were beginning to show. The first colonies had been established on the new planet, and diplomatic ties were steadily improving. "What we've accomplished here," Keltria began, addressing the council, "is nothing short of extraordinary. We've turned our backs on the hatred and mistrust that plagued our past. Together we've charted the stars, we've found new worlds, and we've begun building a future for our peoples." Marcus took her hand, his voice steady as he continued. "This is just the beginning. We've come through the darkest of times, and now we stand at the threshold of a new era. An era where cooperation and unity can lead us to greater heights than either of us could have achieved alone." The council members, once divided, now looked toward each other with a shared sense of purpose. Old tensions had not completely faded, but the vision of a united future was no longer a distant dream. It was a reality in the making. "We have learned," Marcus concluded, "that no matter how great the obstacles, we can overcome them. Together." The future. As the years passed, the alliance between humanity and the Serafani grew stronger. New technologies, discoveries, and shared experiences brought both peoples closer together. Together they charted more star systems, built thriving colonies, and faced the challenges of the galaxy with a shared resolve. Marcus and Keltria continued to lead the efforts, their bond strengthened not just by their mission, but by the trust they had built in each other. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined their future. In the vastness of space, amidst the unknown, they had found something greater than survival. They had found hope. And as they stood together on the bridge of a new vessel, staring out at the stars once again, they knew that the dawn of a new era had truly arrived. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.